The book is done. Here's how it turned out. You see the embossed cover, and pages are really tight. Got a good tight signatures. End papers look good. Any of those tapes and the mull is all buried in there. You can't tell unless you feel it. I guess that's why they use the end papers with all this activity on it, so you can't. It kind of blends everything together. Got my quote on the first page. Headbands follow the turning of the book, and everything looks good. I'm pretty happy with how that turned out. And the next thing to do is to build a slipcase for it. First, a quick note on grain. We haven't talked about that since the first video. It is very important whenever you're gluing any paper or bookboard together that you know which direction the grain is going, and glue pieces the same way. So you can't do one grain going vertical, the other grain going horizontal, and glue them together and hope for any kind of good result. The grain on the bookboard is a little bit harder to figure out than the grain on paper, but what I found is, for one thing, you can usually see kind of how it's rolled, and you can actually see the grain in it. And if you can't, you try cutting it in both directions. Cut it this way and cut it this way, and you'll feel a big difference with the way your razor blade goes through it. When you're going with the grain, it seems very effortless, and it doesn't you don't hear anything or feel anything. It just kind of slices right through it. And when you're going cross grain with the bookboard, it's kind of crackly. You can kind of almost imagine you're hitting every one of those fibers perpendicular to it and cutting it, so it's through it, and so it's got a very different feeling. Once you do figure that out, so you never have to try to figure it out again, take a pencil, and you can probably see I've done that on this, and just draw lines in the direction of the grain back and forth on the bookboard, and then you'll always have it. And then any piece that you cut off of it, if there's not enough of those lines showing on it, if it's a narrow piece that kind of sits between some of the lines, then draw the line while you're at it, so you can you know once that thing is in your hands and it's off away and you forget, then you'll know. And another thing to do for making the slipcase, which is our next step, make yourself a gauge with two thicknesses. You glue together a piece that has an additional thickness of the bookboard on it, so now you have a gauge that is one bookboard thick, and then the other part of it is two bookboards thick, and I'll show you how to use that. That way you don't have to do any real measurements with a ruler. You just kind of hold your book up to the bookboard, put your gauge on it, and draw a line, and then you're ready to cut. And that comes next. The slipcase is going to have an embossed cover just like the book does. So it's going to be two, on the front and the back of the box is going to be two thicknesses of the single ply, and then the back and the top and the bottom, or the box will be a double ply. So what I've done is you can just use the book to determine your dimensions. The top and the bottom, or the front and the back of the box, are going to be the cover the top end and the bottom of everything. So I use my template for the one thickness, which will be that piece on the back, and draw a line. I used a board here up against the bookboard, that my spine of my book hits that, and then I know that if I draw a line here, that is the width of the box. And I'm going to need a couple of those, so I'm going to take the rest of this, cut it, and then we will emboss it like we did with the cover of the book. And it's best to put the razor up to the pencil line and then move the ruler to it. And this cut is with the grain. It's the easy one. It goes very, very smoothly, and you will feel the difference. If you don't believe that whole grain thing, you will become a believer. Okay, it's through, and then the little piece down here. Move the ruler up to it. Okay. I'll cut that into pieces and we'll emboss the initials onto it. I've prepared the front and the back of the slipcase covers with, printed out the initials JJL on a laser jet printer. Got that centered on the back and the front board. So these will be transferred using acetone, and it's a pretty good transfer method. Where it doesn't come through too strongly, you got to kind of go back and fill it in and kind of figure out where your initials are. But you just put acetone on a rag and press down firmly on this side of the paper, and it does a pretty good job of transferring. You see it a lot better when the bookboard dries. So that's one, and the other. You'd be tempted to rub it and rub it and rub it, but the truth is that the toner will come back onto the piece of paper. It'll lift back off. So you only really want to do it once. So those are going to be pretty good transfers, and then I will cut those out and glue them up to another single ply piece, and we'll have the front and the back of the slipcase.